Looks like we got a little of had a little bit of an interruption, little technical difficulties with all of our new fancy work over here. But we just got done talking about the batters with the Yankees. You're getting ready to jump right back into the pitching. So before I
Yep.
keep blabbering and everything like that, I'll let you keep doing your thing.
All right, man. Sorry about that. Yeah. So pitcher number one, of course, Garrett Cole, 29-year-old righty, 6.5 innings about last year. So should continue on that type of high end, elite pitching, maybe best in the league. ERA right in line with his xFIP. Strikeouts really increased every year for Cole. He's been thrown in the backyard of teammate Adam Ottavino. So this is per the media reports. Despite the suspension of spring training and shut down of team facilities to most players, Cole appears intent on keeping in shape in anticipation of an eventual return to action, of course. The Yankees' key offseason signing is expected to be the club's opening day starter when the regular season comes and commences. So we are looking forward to playing Cole. Any chance, opportunity I really got that I played Cole in DFS last year, he got me a win. I could probably truthfully say that, every time you could almost count on that 45 point, 65 point upside and even up in the 70-point range because he would just bring you up from maybe the depths of below 50% of the field, maybe in the 50-50, and then bring you up towards as long as not too many people were playing him, it would really just increase your bottom line, your lineup up into the cash. So it was really great playing him.
He's it's Garrett Cole at this point. I think it's like one of those scenarios when you talk about like Mike Trout or Nolan Arenado, Freddie Freeman, one of those guys just top of his class. I don't expect the new stadium, maybe the park factor is a small impact,
Yeah.
but not something I'm too worried about. The strikeouts will still be there, the wins will still be there for him, all the opportunities will still be there. You don't have to worry about innings with him, regardless. Even if we played a full season, he's an absolute stud. He's worth the price tag if he's up there. There's no doubt about it in my mind. There's only a few or a handful
Yeah.
of guys that we can even see possibly having the same size strikeout upside as him, and it's Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Jacob DeGrom, and this gentleman right here. So they're in the
Right.
league of their own, worth paying for.
Yeah, and if they can't hit the ball, then the weather, the hotness, humidity, whatever it is, or the dry air of Arizona, all that stuff's not going to matter because they can't hit any balls off of him. So you got to get it at least to that point to get the bat to the ball. So hey, pitching number two, Luis Severino, 26-year-old righty, about 6 innings pitched per game, ground ball pitcher, giving about 10 Ks per nine. Um, he had an elbow problem, or still does, is among that group I mentioned of Yankees eligible to use the Yankees facility in Tampa. So they have Florida right now. We have a stay-at-home declaration going on. So basically, no longer be able to gathering, of course, at George Steinbrenner Field. However, the policy makes an exception for players undergoing rehab programs, meaning Severino is to be able to continue to use the facility as long as he needs to with that short list of players, like I mentioned. Severino coming out of specifically Tommy John surgery in late February is expected to miss. Whoa, hope that isn't true there. Wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to cut you. I think
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah,
done.
yeah.
Oh, he's going under the knife,
He's
I believe,
done.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that they were
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
like, really looking forward to and really kind of bouncing back from. But
Yeah.
no, he's done right now, and they're actually just looking at the best case scenarios to make sure that his injury is going to be intact or his elbow is going to be
Yeah.
intact for the future.
So much for
Just
that.
so it's not so much long term for him.
Yeah, man. So on to number three then. James Paxton, 32-year-old lefty, 5 innings pitched per game. Not going to give you likely, a quality start. So less points, obviously, in DFS. Should give you, though, 11 Ks per nine, but also the downside to 1.3 home runs per nine. So to attack for a sneaky type of stack against when you're going against these Yanks, his back had recently completed his fifth bullpen session since resuming a throwing program. So this was reported there by NorthNewJersey.com. Yankees manager Aaron Boone provided a positive update on the status here, indicating that he's really encouraged by the Southpaw's progress and recovery. back from his February surgery. He's gone pretty smoothly. So Paxton remains on track to be ready to pitch in games by, looking here now into late May or early June, bearing any setbacks.
Yeah, Paxton's always been a notorious flamethrower, a guy that's just faced with several tendonitis issues in his elbow. That's one thing. I think he's another one of those guys that kind of benefits from the shortened season, getting a little bit more time to rest. He wasn't expected to start and be ready to start at the beginning of the season, so now he has that opportunity to be ready to go by the opening day rotation. So I'm looking forward to him as far as the DFS play, as far as like one of those season long guys that you want in your team all year long. Not somebody I'm really keen on. I'm just, I'm worried about a guy at his age that throws that hard. With this many elbow injuries already, something, I believe he's already a guy that kind of already went under Tommy John surgery. So
Yeah.
I'm not too keen on him as far as that. But when he is healthy, if he's going to be pitching deep into games, that's something that we have to monitor. He has been facing several injuries, so we might want to just ease off the gas pedal. Maybe his first few starts. Maybe see how he does if they get a little bit of jump start into him. Probably I would expect maybe like 5 to 6 for the first 3, 4, 5 starts, and then maybe they start to ramp him up a little bit. But once he hits that ramp up mark, he's one of the league's hardest throwers. He's got great stuff, great breaking pitch, but great strikeout stuff. So all over him as far as DFS.
Sounds good. They got so many guys that they turn to, guys that just come off the bench, whether they're relievers or they bring them up from the minor leagues, whatever they got to do. I mean, obviously, does a lot of hit by a lot of injuries in the last year for whatever reason, and they'll just continue to crank out more and more bodies, mostly better players than not good players just because of who they are. But next guy is Masahiro Tanaka, 31-year-old righty, gives you almost 6 innings pitched per game at 5.8. High ground ball rate guy. Does allow 1.3 homers per 9 once again. Should get back up, though, to 9 Ks per 9 instead of 7 last year. Obviously, he had a down year in 19. He actually returned to Japan with his family in late March, which is alarming to some people, but it's actually a normal thing per the New York Daily News reports. Is basically many foreign-born players, they'll be returning or have returned home to their countries of origin. So it's not surprising or really any cause for alarm. Even though the Yankees are not keeping close tabs on players like Tanaka, as they basically have their freedom to basically do their own workout regimen during the off season, so they're not restricted in that sense. So
I would hope for a bounce back year from Tanaka. He had one of his worst seasons last year. It almost looked like he was kind of getting figured out.
yeah,
His normal ground ball stuff, his sinker wasn't working for him. It's one of his best pitches that he throws. He really relies on his sinker and his splitter, two of them. Neither one of them were working for him. They were actually being like opposite ratios where they were getting smashed. So. He is a little bit of an older guy. We're talking about a guy that's 30 something. I believe he's like 31 or 32 years old at this point in his career. So I wouldn't be expecting best stuff from him. Not a guy I'm generally targeting. You touched on it. Yes, he was 7 to 9 K to 9 ratio. I wouldn't expect it necessarily to be that low, but I wouldn't really expect it to even be up to 9 anymore. I'm kind of deciding right in the middle. I'll fall at 8, and
mm-hmm.
given the slate, there's probably better options out there. So probably higher upside. Yes, he can eat innings. That's one good positive. He can eat the innings. He can get you the quality start. He can even get you the win in that lineup, depending on the matchup. But uh, more often than not, we'll probably have a fewer higher upside guys to go with.
Fair enough. Next guys are just kind of looking to attack. J.A. Happ. He's got an old 37-year-old lefty, gives you about a little over 5 innings per game. Attack with righties. He gave up 28 homers last year. It's just been very inconsistent. So we attacked him a lot last year. He did turn heads with the Yanks organization, though, with his performance this spring, which was encouraging. Basically, thought that he picked up where he left off in the last 6 or 7 weeks of last season as he, finished strong there. Came in spring training and what looked like to be great laser focus, actually crisp stuff, so good stuff that he had. It's no surprise in a way the veteran, Hap's numbers this spring, actually 2-0, 1.38 ERA, 16-1 strikeouts to walks over the 13 innings that he pitched. So this southpaw has looked like he is a lock for the Yankees rotation, just because as we mentioned again they already have a guy out for the year with the injuries. But Hap is still a guy that I look to attack, like I mentioned, just so it is inconsistent. I'm going to attack him with the righties, which is easy to do. Most teams have a ton of righties in their lineups.
Yeah, he's struggled. He gave up a lot of long balls. Part of it was, the park. Part of it was just his stuff in general. He's getting a little bit older. He's not a guy that was the same guy that he was pitching over there in Toronto when the Yankees brought him in. Kind of on the down end of his career at this point, but not a bad guy to have in the back end of your lineup or your rotation. I mean, and I would definitely expect a better year. I don't think it can get much worse than the season he just had. So the uptick in that nature. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He got crushed by Reddy. So if that's something you want to target going forward, you're not going to get any complaints from me.
Cool. So just kind of scanning over the rest of the guys, I know there's some spot start guys that are not going to be full rotation of stars, it appears, like Jordan Montgomery, and we got like a Chad Green in here. It appears to be or could be on opening day roster, but nobody that's really outstanding to me at this point in time. Bullpen is good. Luis Severino, of course, one of the fastest fastball pitchers in the league in the game, closing out games. So how about you?
Well, I think Montgomery is probably going to find his way into the rotation early on. He's a guy that pitched pretty well for him in the little bit of appearances that he had last season. So I think with the whole Severino injury and Paxton kind of working his way back, they might opt to skip him once in a while. I think he's definitely going to find himself in the rotation. And as far as this Yankees bullpen, it's one of the best bullpens in the league. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have so many good arms in it. You touched on. I think you accidentally said Severino, but you met Chapman in the
Oh, I'm
fastball.
sorry, Chapman.
No, no, no. Yeah, I think it's because we were just talking about him,
Looked like the same
Severino
guy
before.
somewhere.
Both fantastic, both hard throwers.
Yeah,
One of them obviously dealing with his own issues though. But Chapman obviously
yeah.
anchoring that bullpen, being the closer, one of the hardest throwers in baseball. Still, he's one guy that I have a personal grudge against. Where I'm a Yankee fan, I just kind of hold my breath slightly, when he comes in, just because he does. When the wheels fall off, they fall off for him. But just with the amount of arms you touched on, Adam Ottavino, bringing him over from Colorado, I thought was a fantastic move when they originally did that. He's another one of those long reliever guys that's absolutely just lights out, and he pitched well when he was in Colorado. So when you see a guy just kind of pitching very well in relief in Colorado, it just goes to show you that whenever you bring that guy into any other stadium, he's going to be even better. Bringing in Zach Britton over there, prying away one of the best pieces that Baltimore had at one point. I think that was another fantastic move. So I think this bullpen, it's one of the tougher bullpens you're gonna have to go against in the major league. So even when you see these guys go, 5 or 6 innings, you're getting Hap gets creamed in the first 2, 3 innings. There's a lot of guys that can come in and kind of clean up his damage. So it's still going to be a very tough team to target. It's going to be very, park driven for me when I'm going against the Yankees. But still, they're going to be a little vulnerable in, I guess, some scenarios.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. Top 10 in pitching overall, ERA, win saves, opponent's batting average. So good bullpen, of course. Into the batting numbers, more than top 10 in every category like last year. Kind of ridiculous, actually. Ranked number 4th in Major League Baseball in batting, 3rd in total bases, 3rd in slugging percentage, 4th in on base percentage, 3rd in OPS, 1st in runs, 2nd in home runs, 2nd in RBI, 24th in stolen bases, though.
Yeah, and I think you can expect a lot of those numbers outside of stolen base jump with Luke Voigt playing most of the season. If Giancarlo Stanton plays most of the season, if Aaron Judge plays most of the season, you definitely see those numbers probably skyrocket. So this is going to continue to be one
Wow.
of the best lineups in baseball. Continue to have one of the best bullpens. Very good staff. Obviously, bringing in the best pitcher in baseball right now with Garrett Cole. So it's gonna be a fun team to watch, man. I'm looking forward
Man,
to it.
yeah, no matter
It's
what
it's
happens, I
something
mean,
that I'm gonna catch a few games too, right
there
down
you
the road
go.
from me over here.
Maybe you get a World Series championship there.
Yeah, so we'll slide over. We'll go over to the Blue Jays at this point. A lot less, I guess you could say, star-studded. A lot of less players that we're going to be talking about so much at this point. But I alluded to it early on. The young, the sexiness with this team, it's clearly evident. Some of the top picks in the drafts over the past few years are on this team. Some of the top-ranked prospects over the past few years are on this team, and a couple former players' sons are on this team. So. We'll go right down to the lineup. I talked about it before. We'll start with the righty, Bo Bichette. One of the top-ranked shortstop prospects and overall prospects in the MLB pipeline for the past few years. They're very excited about this kid coming up. Very limited sample size last season. Only had about 200 plate appearances or 200 at bats. I think it was 211 plate appearances, but he performed well. It's a very tough lineup, but he's going to be batting lead off, so he's going to get the at bats. I think there's enough juice behind him where the run scoring opportunity will be there
Juice
for
on the
him.
bone.
Enough juice on the bone. He had 11 home runs and only 196 at bats, but the power is evident. 30 home run upside is clearly there. The average is there. He batted 311 over that span. He's got a solid eye at the plate. I think this kid is kind of flying under the radar, even in season long leagues. If you were to tell me if there's any guys that have that top 5 upside, he's definitely falls into that category for a guy that you're drafting outside of the top 10. So I think, early on in the season, he's a guy I'm going to be targeting because I think his price tag is going to be a little bit lower than expected and, immediately jump right on that. So I don't know if you're a Bo Bichette fan, but if you're not, just saying his name's pretty damn fun.
Yeah, I like it. Son of a player, of course. As this Blue Jays lineup, actually, they had a plan. It was kind of wild to get all juniors in there from other major league ball players, and see how that's kind of working out. But as far as there's any advanced numbers that I noticed from Bichette, I think his ISO will regress a little bit as his BAPIP was high, possibly his power, but he's still got, like you said, he's still got power, 30 home run upside, all that mentioned. So I like him.
Yeah, and then the one thing you have to worry about with him, and it's rightfully so with any leadoff hitter, is just the RBI totals. I don't expect there to be a lot of RBI opportunities, especially with the back end of this lineup being fairly weak. But I just think the raw upside of this kid in a full season worth of at bats, it's sky's the limit. He's absolutely star-studded tool, multi studs, and he's even got that 15 to 20% or 15 to 20 stolen base upside. I can even see him getting a little bit more than that. This kid's young. He's athletic. He's a very good player. Very, very good player. Really looking forward to him. And he's getting followed up by another guy that's probably every fantasy analyst's favorite shiny new toy this season, and it's Kevin Biggio. He had a little bit of a bigger sample size last season, came up a little bit earlier than we saw, Bichette get his plate appearances. But, the numbers are a little bit more misleading when you look at a guy like Biggio. When you look at his minor league numbers compared to how they necessarily transitioned to the major in his first, 350, 400 at bats, it doesn't tell the full tale. I think he had about a 16.5 walk rate last season, which is absolutely unbelievable. That's a great walk rate. So his eye is good, but his strikeout rate was absolutely insane. A 28.6% strikeout rate last season, which is almost a 10% difference compared to his minor league average. A lot of that's going to be just adjusting to this major league level, getting comfortable. Some of these guys coming up with such highly touted prospects play with a little chip on their shoulder and feel a little bit more pressure, especially being the son of a Hall of Famer. So, I expect this guy to be a potential 25 and 25, even upside of 30 and 30 type of guy when you're talking about home runs and steals. The average, I expect to definitely increase a little bit, only a 234 average. Again, I just talked about how they're kind of being a little bit of that getting acclimated to the major league level kind of aspect. And now that with a couple more guys in that lineup, I expected him to see a little bit better pitches batting in the 2 hole. So I'm
Let me
very
ask
high
you
on
real quick.
Biggio. Yeah.
With a guy like Biggio, I noticed he throws right, so he's basically a righty, but he bats left only. So being a baseball guy, like since you played and Andrew as well, why do you think that is?
Maybe he just didn't want to play a certain position. I don't know. I think I played with a kid back at on my freshman team year, and he was ambidextrous, where when he can write like in class, he'd be able to write with his left hand and and his right hand, but he couldn't bat both ways either. He said he could only bat lefty, But he wouldn't throw righty. He would throw lefty as well. But so some people could just do that, I guess. I don't really have the answer to that.
Okay.
It's pretty unique. That might be part of the
Yeah.
reason why he doesn't play on the left side of the infield though. A lot of
He's
the
much
times they
better
don't.
versus righties.
Yeah, and that may make sense too. Um, but I really don't have the common answer to that one, to be honest. I wish I
Okay.
did.
Just thought if anybody knew.
Yeah, but there might be somebody out there that does. That seems like something that when he's in the minor league system, I would ask him. You know, if I was one of the reporters, I was somebody interviewing him. You know, right before a game, a little fun fact. Hey, you know, why do you throw righty but bat lefty?
Yep.
You know, little fun fact.
Find some of
It
those
could be just
guys.
because some of those guys grew up in a baseball family, and it's always been good to just kind of bat lefty. If you put bat lefty, you've always got a little bit of an edge on you know, the rest of the competition. So his father might have just taught him at a young age. You know, he might have been a righty, but he said, "Hey, learn how to bat lefty."
Okay.
You know,
The
we'll
next
keep chucking
junior.
on. Yeah, we'll keep trucking on. Lourdes Gurriel, you know, a guy that really just kind of came onto the scene last year across a very limited sample size and a stretch, I guess you could say. But you know, he kind of flashed that upside in only 71 games, put up about a 292 with 20 home runs, 50 runs, 43 RBIs. You know, you stretch out to a full sample size. We're talking about a phenomenal season. You know, 40 home run season. You know, very very close to you know 200 total RBIs and runs scored. So do I expect that? No, but this guy's very streaky. He's a guy that I'm going to be monitoring, especially in DFS when you're looking at one of those streaks and when he's getting hot, you want to jump on it and just kind of ride that train. That's one thing in baseball I think is very important as opposed to other sports where you can necessarily go off of streaks as much. You know, we've seen in basketball a couple of things like Damian Lillard's hot streak where that one was even when you wanted it to end, it wasn't going to end. You just had to keep riding it. Um, Baseball is a sport I kind of monitor that a little bit more. So I'll be looking at Gurriel as far as those streaks. And I think that, you know, at his age, I believe he's, you know, mid 20s. I could be wrong. He's not as young as some of these other prospects, but he's still got a lot of potential, especially because he's really gotten better every single year that he's got some at bats so far. So, you know, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to touch on as far as Gurriel. Not the best three-hole hitter I'd like again, but you know this lineup is very young, and I think they're just letting the kind of these prospects and these young guys play out. And eventually, once people see their talent, I think prospects
Yeah.
or free agents are going to get drawn to them.
Yeah, I think Gurriel really doesn't stand out in any way. He's a decent player, decent slugging, hard contact, but didn't get enough playing time last year. So I don't know. I wouldn't expect too much out of him.
Yeah, and I think if that's the upside you're looking for, I think that the playing time's there for him this season. There's not a ton of competition necessarily for him. You know, he's kind of a little bit of a utility player. So he originally played infield, but now that Biggio and Bichette are up, there's really no room for him. So he's kind of worked his way out to the outfield. But you know, he could play those. So even on off days, he's still going to get his playing time. I think he can even see some time at DH. But he's definitely a bat that they're going to want involved on more games than not, and more often than not. So I think as far as that, you know, that aspect, there's upside to him just from the you know the simple playing time, and that's more gauged, I guess, towards your yearly fantasy leagues and your season long fantasy leagues, as opposed to DFS.
Okay. Who do you got
Go.
next?
We're going into the number four, which is one of the last of the shiny new toys, and it's you know Vladimir Guerrero.
That's what
You know,
I was
everybody
waiting
wants to
on.
talk
Yeah.
Vladdy. Everybody loves Vladdy, and I mean, how could you not? It's yeah. I was speaking back to his father. His father was one of my favorite players growing up. I absolutely loved him. He had one of the best arms in the outfield. Guy would bring his 9 iron when he came up to the plate. Absolutely could hit any single pitch. Doesn't matter where it was, and he was notoriously known for it. And I absolutely loved him. So knowing that he's coming from that blood lineage and that bloodline, and that he's getting that kind of parenting, you got to expect this guy to have some talent. So he did disappoint a little bit last season, though, with the kind of hype that he had surrounding him. Everyone, you know, kind of expected him to have that instant, immediate impact, that he'd be a star-studded kind of guy. And while he flashed some huge upside, some huge potential, some of his power numbers were down a little bit. We were expecting a little bit more of a hard hit rate. We were expecting a little bit more of an exit velocity. We didn't quite get that from him. Home runs were down a little bit in the plate appearances that he did have. Did struggle at the plate as far as walks a little bit, but I'm not taking anything away from this dude. The upside is absolutely there. I mean, in your season long leagues, I think he was going around like that 4, 5, 6 round range, more or less around the five. Yes, there's plenty of, upside in there and there's a lot of risk in there, but he's going to be boom or bust. But when you're talking about just hard hitting, and we touched on this, the way the ball sounds coming off the bat, I know it's the home run derby, but we're talking about a guy that had an average exit velocity of over 15 miles an hour higher than Aaron Judge during the home run derby. This
Wow.
dude can absolutely pound the ball. It is there. I'm chalking it up to the growing pains. Young dude, coming up in the league, not even like 20, 21 years old. Once this kid puts it together, the sky's the limit. He's going to be a future all-star for years to come. He absolutely pounds the ball. Is speed going to be there for him? No. Another thing you have to kind of worry about with him is that he's a little bit of a chunky dude. He's a little hefty. So he does deal with, getting a little bit tired and fatigued later on in games, later on in the season. Hoping a lot of that gets worked off in his second year. He's got plenty of off-season time to kind of work on that cardio, especially right now. So that could be a benefit for him going into the year too. So a great spot, great place to be in this four hole. And he's got some decent power coming up behind him as well. So I know you probably have something to say about Vladdy. So I'll shut my trap.
Well, everything seems like, yeah, he has great ISO slugging. Babbitt was at 316 last year. That's fine. I mean, as a son, he stands out, of course, potentially reaching that someday. I believe it'll take some time. It'll take a couple years to get more towards his potential. But so I don't know if they called him up too early, but I suppose they in a position where it's just a kind of a bottom of the mill or bottom of the basement type of team and wanted to call him up, getting that experience. So maybe it was a good call. But he had poor fielding. That was another factor. Maybe you mentioned, he's not a good fielder. So you got to put him in there sometimes at DH probably.
No, I don't think he'll ever. I mean, he'll only play DH if he's getting tired. I think that's the only reason. He's going to be slotted in there, no doubt about it, every day third. A lot of the times you see guys coming up from the minors that struggle with fielding, and it's simply because they're just trying to buy service time. That's the biggest excuse that you'll see a lot of the teams use. Oh, he's struggling with this, or we want him to work on his fielding a little bit more before it comes with the. We just want to save money and have him on a longer contract. Is what that generally means. I don't think he's a terrible fielder. I don't think he's Nolan Arenado at third base or Matt Chapman by any means or shape or means. But he should be able to hold his own just perfectly fine. I don't expect that that role or that job to kind of slip away from him anytime soon. Did
Okay.
they call him up a little bit too early? Perhaps, but he was just obliterating minor league pitching. Where at that point, what was the point of keeping him down here? It was like kind of similar to that Eloy Jimenez thing, and I think these two guys are very similar. Same year, same prospect class, where both of them,
Good
necessarily
comparison.
underperformed to their overall hype, but they're both poised for breakout. They both presented that underlying skill and power and hit ability and hit tool where they're going to put it together. It's just a matter of if not when,
All
or
right.
when not if backwards. Uh, Moving on to the next one. I know Santino's guy. This is one of his guys. He absolutely loves him, and it's Travis Shaw. Travis Shaw coming over from Milwaukee, it kind of found his way, bounced out of there last season. And coming off of one of what could be one of the worst seasons known to man, or just I guess in his realm of career. Excuse me. Coming off a nice injury riddled year as well, and I think a lot of that had to do with his poor performance. He was in and out of the lineup. He was dealing with wrist injuries. As soon as he came back, he was dealing with something else as well, persistent ankle injuries, muscle injuries. He never really had a chance to kind of put it all together. So I'm not really going to hold it all to him. Only had 230 at bats in that, and in that span, 157 batting average is not realistic compared to what his career was prior to that. 270 to 240, 270, 240, and then he's down to 157. So I'm okay with chalking that up to injury. This is a guy that has some underlying power involved as well. OPS of 119 and 121, 114 three times in his career. So I'm okay with getting me some Travis Shaw shares. I think it's going to be a low owned guy. He's going to be dirt cheap coming into the season, looking to bounce back in a new home. Not a lot of protection or anything behind him, but at the five hole, you should still see plenty of pitches if people don't want to face Vlad, who's one of their major only power concerns that they have to worry about in this lineup. So you should see plenty of pitches. I'm looking for a decent bounce back guy. I wouldn't expect maybe 30 or 32 home runs, but 24, 25 home runs seems like in the realm of possibility for Travis Shaw this season.
Yeah, I don't expect to use him at all. Just matchup based. I want to make sure he's playing against a versus righty. He's doing a lot better. 251 batting average compared to when he's playing a lefty, because he is a lefty, right? Yeah, he's a lefty.
Yeah.
So when he's playing lefties, I'm not playing him. Average batting average 209. Doesn't hit homers. Doesn't steal bases anyway. So, but he hit 30 home runs in 2018, so he can give you nice power and pop, in the right matchup.
2017 too. He had 31 and 17, 32
Even
and
better,
18.
2017. Yeah,
Yeah,
even
and
better.
then that really down year last year where he hit 7 and batted 157 and 230 injury riddled at bats. So that's kind of why I'm looking at him as a decent bounce back candidate. A lot of guy
Sure.
that's probably going to fly under a lot of people's radars, but 2 seasons ago, this guy was an absolute, I wouldn't call him a stud, but very serviceable. And when you're looking at in 2017, yes, he was a stud. Both those years he had OBPs around 350. So slugging of just about 500 in both of those as well, 480 and then
Yeah,
513. So he could put the ball
saw
into
that.
play. It's a new change of scenery for him, so I think that could definitely benefit him. I'm not going to go, to the moon and back like Santino would probably like me to about him, but he's definitely somebody I think that we have to
He was
keep on our
excited.
radar. Oh yeah, he's always hyping
Hey,
up
well,
Travis Shaw.
probably based on price, maybe he's got some validity to that. I remember seeing him at 2,400 on FanDuel. So to get him in a right platoon split, why not take a good shot?
Yeah, and he's a little streaky too, but if you get him in the right streak, I think he's good to go. And then we'll
Definitely.
keep moving. There's not a lot of other batters necessarily. I was super interested to talk about in this lineup. Randall Grichuk would round out the sixth spot playing center field. Teoscar Hernandez behind him, and then Derek Fisher, who's slated as their DH necessarily. Derek Fisher's also an outfielder. Came over from Houston. Decent prospect that they had. Somebody that they just had way too many guys behind him. They're not going to bump Derek Fisher or Kyle Tucker for a guy like Derek Fisher or any of those other guys behind him. So he had to find his way in a new home. Somebody that I think could be a very serviceable player. And got some decent upside him, but Grichuk's showed some power, very streaky.
Yeah.
High strikeout rate. He's not a guy that you can really rely on. Not the best eye at the plate either, but when he puts the ball into play, he hits the ball hard. So just another one of those guys that we can keep in mind for if we're looking for a boomer bust home run. Generally doesn't draw a ton of ownership. So other than that, I'm not really playing too much Teoscar Hernandez. Not a guy I'm overly excited about in general. Actually, I believe both him and Fisher were at one point in that Astros system and getting
Right.
some decent time. So Danny Jansen, though, to round it out as the catcher, he is the guy that I do have some interest in. Jansen was one of their highly touted prospects, one of their best catcher prospects in their organization over the past few years, and one of the better ones in the MLB pipeline over the past few years. So I do think that he had a down year. We saw him really start off sluggish when he first came up, and that kind of really impacted his overall numbers and in his outlook. But definitely a guy that, on DraftKings, I will keep in my rotation and have on my radar, especially knowing that I'm going to want to get some Biggio and some Bichette. It's just a nice little round out that bottom end, top end of that starting lineup. So anything you wanted to say about those last few guys?
Yeah, I like pretty much like what you said on Grichuk, as he's got nice isolated power numbers. He could be more productive hitter in a team going here moving forward in 2019. Has proven potential for better slugging because his X slugging was better than what he did last year. So some nice numbers there. Rowdy Tellez kind of hits a benchmark for exit velocity. He could power his way into a decent amount of RBIs as well. I would like to see him hit more versus lefties. It appears he had better numbers, even though he's a lefty himself there. So something a little bit unusual with Tellez.
Yeah, Rowdy,
Yeah.
I believe is what they called him, and he did display some. So he actually got called up pretty early, and he was a guy that they just slotted into DH more often than not. And I expect him to see a decent amount of time at first base, especially with Justin Smoke on. Something I probably should have mentioned right off the top is the fact that Justin Smoke, one of the better hitters, one of their better middle of the core lineup hitters, and their first baseman is now off. So on maybe on those days where it makes sense to platoon Travis Shaw or Travis Shaw's dealing with an injury, you could see Tellez get a little bit of first base time or some DH time because of so. And he's basically just a poor man's Miguel Sano at this point. Just displayed decent power numbers, but overall nothing that really pops off the page as far as his metrics. I'll slide right into the pitching. There's not much to talk about, not a lot of excitement to go with their pitching in general. Most of it are new faces. Bringing in Hijin Ryu, another one of Santino's boys. He absolutely loves this dude, and I got to give him credit where it's due. We do our season-long leagues, and he pegged it. He pegged his breakout, and he's been talking about him for the past few seasons. And with Ryu, what it basically just comes down to is just health. Innings pitched with him. When he's healthy and he's pitching, he's great. He's only had two times in his career where he's pitched more than 180 innings, his first year and last year. So looking at his last year numbers, though, led the league in ERA at 2.32, 14 wins.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily all the exact strikeouts that we would like to see, only 163 Ks. But when you're talking about a guy that just prevents damage, can locate his pitches, has great, great, actual changeup speed. Like this guy he's great. It's just injuries with him. So do I expect the wins to be there? No, he's not pitching in LA, so I don't know. 14 wins wasn't anything fantastic. But when this guy's on the mound, he's going to limit the damage that's done to him, and you can feel confident in knowing that he's probably going to have a decent chance at very least getting you the quality start and most likely getting you a win as long as they can put some runs up on the board.
Yeah, I'm surprised he got 6.2 innings per game on the Dodgers. They usually yank him out a bit early there.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the Dodgers' MO. They have all those guys that are ready to be starters that they can't even use. Ross Stripling has been ready, a major league ready starter for years now, and I think that there's plenty of other guys that we could sit here and name that are in the farm system probably ready to come up and would probably be a third or fourth starter for most teams, but they're just always deep. That's kind of always been their farm system. And then they brought over Chase Anderson out of Milwaukee. He's not somebody I'm overly excited about. 32 years old at this point. He's flashed a little bit of upside here and there. I think he could be a solid number two. Again, another guy that's faced several injuries throughout his career. We've seen the upside. We've seen some decent strikeout upside from him in the past. Didn't get to see too much of it last few years. I'm not completely sold on Chase Anderson. Not a guy I'm going to be targeting in DFS. When you're talking about season long stuff, you're not paying for it. There's nobody other than Ryu in this lineup that you have to pay for. You get these guys for next to nothing. So when you talk about like a season long league, the worst you do is drop a guy and pick him up. So in that kind of aspect, I don't mind doing. I'm going to take a little bit of the wait and see approach as far as DFS. But I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a high ERA from him. Control
5.1, I believe.
Yeah, control is probably not going to be there for him. Like so I'll probably take my pass, and then I'll just keep moving to Tanner Roark. He's just an overall solid pitcher throughout his career. He's an innings-eating kind of guy. We've seen him do, flash some upside and brilliance over there in Washington. We've seen him struggle plenty of times to get crushed and look like a back end of the guy that's sort of losing it. But I like him. I think he's going to be the perfect guy, the perfect number 3 guy for almost any rotation where, you never have to worry too much about it, like slotting him in. Not a guy I'm going to go out of my way to target. But at the same time, I'm expecting a cheap price tag, and I can see him on some nights being a guy that as my second pitcher, just to save some money, playing him in the right matchup. But Matt Shoemaker moving in after that, a guy that when he was in pitching over in LA, we saw some really good upside. We saw some really good strikeouts upside from Shoemaker. Went through a little bit of elbow injuries, and that kind of derailed him for a little while, and never really put it back together. Hasn't pitched a full season really since. I wouldn't expect a full workload from him. I'm not expecting a whole lot from him. Again, kind of in that Chase Anderson range where I don't think you're paying for it, but I think there is plenty of upside. I prefer Shoemaker over a guy like Anderson, just because I've seen that strikeout upside, from him before in the past. So keep them on your radar. Maybe you want to wait and see approach. This bullpen's not bad, so you got to take that into precaution when you're talking about a few of these guys. Ken Giles really put together a little bit of a bounce back
Yeah.
when he was falling apart over there in Houston for a little while, and they couldn't get him out of there fast enough. Came over here and really kind of put something together and showed that he could still be a very serviceable closer in this league. And then Sam Gavaglio, if I could pronounce it correctly, I usually butcher that one. He's always been a nice little middle reliever for him, so I'm really looking forward to what he has. And then Anthony has, another guy that can come in there, really good velocity. So solid bullpen,
Not bad.
pretty trash rotation, just a lot of solid veterans, I guess you could say. Guys that can keep them in games, but not guys that are going to go out there and win you ball games, which is all you can
Right.
ask for a team that just got a bunch of youth and a bunch of young guys that they're looking to just get some experience and some at bats at this point.
Yeah, that's good. I can definitely attack once you get past Jin Ryu. These guys, interesting. Just look at Chase Anderson gave up 532 slugging versus righties. So I'm going to attack him with righties, no problem there. Gave up also 280 batting average. Rorik gave up 1.5 home runs per nine, susceptible to lefties. So depending on which of these guys pitch, and even Trent Thornton, I'm just going to attack him, with is kind of my strategy, one side or the other, lefties or righties. And I don't believe they have any switch hitters, but well, I mean, it depends who they're playing, obviously. Um, a lot of teams have switch hitters, but depending on how lines up and stacks up, we'll attack these three, four, five guys.
Absolutely, brother. All right. I think that's all we have. So if you guys have a moment and if you can give us a rate, a review, a thumbs up, we would greatly appreciate it. Especially now that you can watch us. I know you got to look at this mustache and it's probably not the most pleasant sight. But we
That's
would
the
really
rock star
appreciate
look.
it. Yeah, now this is the rally
Ah,
stash for work. I refuse to shave it. Until maybe I go back to work. I think my girlfriend can't stand the thing. She hates it. Absolutely hates it. So, but if you can give us that
I
thumbs
can't
up
get
and
away with that.
we
No, I can't get away with it.
they're like the
I did
Yankees over
try the
there.
mustache. You all missed it. I tried the mustache for about uh 2 to 3 weeks, and then I had to cut it off.
Well, mine will probably be gone sooner rather than later. But and then if you guys can also follow us on Twitter, we would greatly appreciate it. You can find me at Mike Apotria, MikeApoTria. You can find Andy at Andy Gallagher, Andy. Am I butchering this, Andy? I just want to make
Nope,
sure I get it right.
it's actually Drew.
I'm gonna
That's all right.
no, get it, go. I'm
Yeah,
terrible
Drew
with
J.
remember.
Drew J. DREWJ Gallagher GALLAGHER.
Drew J. Gallagher. That's absolutely right. Now it's clicking. So please follow us both. You can get us at any time if you have any questions regarding any sport. We're always available. We love to field the Twitter questions. That way we get to quote tweet them, retweet them, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people that kind of have very similar questions. Sometimes people are just a little shy to ask. So we love to give our opinion. And we will be back tomorrow, tomorrow, which is Tuesday, because this is our Monday show, recording the night before to wrap up baseball, and then we will be sliding over to football, which pretty excited for. I just had the NFL draft, so a lot of fun stuff that we'll be breaking into. We'll get a look at some of these new guys, donning some new threads. So that's all I have, though, man. I don't know if there's anything else you want to leave us with.
That's it. Got some good notes from the day, and we'll continue to power on through the rest of the baseball and look into football.
Absolutely, my good friend. So that's all we have for me. We thank you guys for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care, be safe, stay home, stay healthy, and let's get through this all together, guys.